And without further ado, Lee Camp is here, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and bring him in. Lee, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey, Ron, how you doing? When I first tuned in, I heard Hootie and the Blowfish, and I thought I was in the wrong place, but it worked out. It ended up working.
Perfect timing. So a lot of you guys know Lee already, but Lee is the host of the show Redacted Tonight, a beautiful show. He's also a touring stand-up comedian, and most recently, he is the author of this book. Wait, let me get it into bullet points and punchlines, which I read, and we're going to talk about it some today. So let me get your take on this, man. Is it better when it's an interview about a book? Is it better when the person has read the book or when the person hasn't read the book, like typically?
I was actually going to thank you for reading the book, because that's a big moment. I interview tons of people, and I'd say probably a third maybe do I read the book, because I just don't have the time. Sometimes I'm not interested, but usually I don't have the time. So I really do appreciate you reading the book. No, it does help, because I literally was on an interview a couple weeks ago, and I could tell they hadn't read the book, because the first question was, let me ask you about this title.
What was the question about the title?
Why bullet points and punchlines?
Oh, all right.
That was it. That was the question.
Well, there goes my first question.
Let me ask you about why you chose paper to print this on. Of the choices of materials, you could have done aluminum, plastics.
So the author here is Lee Camp. So that's you. That's you. Did you? Is that your real name, or is that like a fake thing? Do comedians do that? Is that a thing? Is that part of your skit, or is that like?
People literally ask me if it's a real name. I think because it's just so short, it confuses people. But no, that's the whole name. That's all my parents could come up with. That's it.
I get that too. I think all comedians get that at some point, because they don't know if like what we do up there is like real or not. Like I get like oh, Ron Placone, is that like, yeah, no, I chose that one. I picked that one randomly.
It's pretty clever. It was Ron Leibowitz, and
then I switched it up, man.
Yeah.
There's only 12 Placones in the world. We're all related. So, but yeah, so I read this, and I enjoyed it very much. I thought you did a great job. It was a really enjoyable book, and we'll get into it. But first, I will start out with a little bit of small talk, man. How you dealing with quarantine? How's everything going for you?
Not bad. It does suck to not be live touring, as I'm sure you're experiencing as well.
It hurts.
You know, we don't do the live audience with my show anymore either. But there's a lot of things I'm thankful for. So I'm thankful that I have a TV show at all that can continue to be done despite the quarantine. And I also am very thankful that I'm not one of the kind of like late night comedy shows where they never were talking about anything substantive to begin with. So then you take away the audience, and it's just a lot of like, I'm just sitting here making faces at a camera. So it's nice that I was talking about substantive stuff, as are you, beforehand, so you can kind of keep doing that. So I am very thankful that I wasn't just like, a prop comic right about now.
Yeah, it is interesting seeing all these, and I haven't watched any of like the clips that are out there, but you see so many people sharing this stuff from late night TV, and just regular people are like, wow, without the canned laughter and the applause signs for a TV audience, some of who are paid, by the way, this doesn't sound as good. This isn't really not into this as much.
It turns out the whole point of their show was just them going, so luckily I like to think that that Redacted Tonight had a little more than that. So that's pretty nice to see that we can keep going through it. Oh my God, the most awkward, which I had to play a clip of on Redacted Tonight, is the WWE did some stuff for that in audience, and yikes.
Oh really?
Yikes.
So was it like?
It seemed oddly. Well, the part I saw was like John Cena just kind of talking to a guy, so they're just staring at each other in the middle of the ring, going, "I'm gonna kill you, man!" And there's like nobody there. It's in an arena, and it's oddly romantic. You feel like they're about to make out at any moment.
That's awesome. So let's get into the book. I love one of the things that really stuck out to me was the analogy you gave for the Russia hysteria, where you described the car and the gnat hitting the windshield. I thought, like, I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful way to put it. So let's talk about that chapter. Was that a chapter? Was that something that, like, how did you come up with that analogy, basically? Like, because, like,
well, yeah. So I believe the writing for the book, at least, was done before the final Mueller report came out. So I obviously, as have you guys, but we're talking about how ridiculous Russiagate was and how, there's a million things to impeach Trump on, but this is laughable. And so I think the chapter you're talking about, although a couple of them mentioned Russiagate, but the chapter you're talking about is about the New York Times basically didn't realize that they were outing the fact that the whole thing was a sham when they revealed, that the company saying these Russian bots they even admit themselves that they don't know that those are Russian bots, even though they're running around saying, everybody supporting Bernie Sanders is a Russian bot, or it's all coming from Russia, even though it was, even the New York Times was admitting that it was false. And that Hamilton 68 was used in these, top-level intelligence reports as proving that Russia was doing something. Meanwhile, Hamilton 68, at least once or twice, has admitted that they don't know that any of that is Russia or anything. And so the analogy, though, with the car was these Facebook memes that, and by the way, there's an update on this. It just happened a couple of weeks ago where Mueller and the Justice Department have now dropped the indictment on the Russian clickbait farm that they couldn't prove had actually done anything with Russian coordination, with Russian government coordination. And so even an American judge, where this whole system is rigged to just let the Justice Department do whatever the fuck they want, and here you have them saying, yeah, we still can't prove anything against this company in Russia. It's a clickbait farm. 56% of the Facebook ads were after the election. Most people know a lot of this stuff by now. But so my point was, even if this company put up a couple of memes that were supposed to help Trump get elected, Satan and Jesus arm wrestling was supposed to help Trump get elected. Even if that were true, that would be like saying that a NASCAR car lost the race because a gnat hit the windshield. And it was like, did a gnat hit the windshield? Yes. Did it lose the race? Yes. Did that gnat make it lose the race? Probably not.
The driver was drunk.
Yeah.
No. I saw that too, where it's like, oh, they pardon a clickbait farm that will never see the inside in the courtroom. I bet next week they're going to pardon the Nigerian prince that screwed some people out of money. I think that's what they're going to get to next.
Well, in terms of never see the inside of a courtroom, actually, what ended up fucking over the Justice Department and the Mueller, by the way, Mueller signed off on it. It was not just Bob Barr. But what ended up screwing them over was that lawyers for the company actually showed up in court, and they had thought that they could indict these, Russian clickbait farmers, and that they would never show up in court, so they could just say, "See, they did it."
And then some attorneys showed up.
Attorneys showed up, and all of a sudden they were required to give like discovery and stuff, and they were like, "Yeah, we can't have any of that. We have no proof whatsoever." So they ultimately just dropped them.
Yeah, and was that at the point where they had to like just go on record and be like, there was $1,400 spent, or like whatever ridiculous small number it was?
Well, those numbers were revealed by the Facebook executive of advertising for Facebook, who it was kind of in the early days of when they were just pulling this forward, and I guess he didn't get the memo that he was supposed to lie to the mainstream media and say, "Oh my God, did they ever manipulate the election?" So he came forward like in days afterwards and said, "We've gone through this, and there was like a few $1,000s spent." Yeah. 56% of it after the election, 25% of it was like $3 a piece or something on each ad. I mean, it was so nothing.
So another thing that really stuck out to me, for anyone not in the know, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this who are familiar with you already know about this, but you had a pretty big smear piece about you published by the New York Times. And you break it down in this, I got to get used to it's on this side. You break it, you break it down in this book in a chapter, and you break down a lot of things. I don't want to give everything away because I want people to go read the book themselves. But, in particular, like there were these, just little small like things insulting your comedy even. And then you broke down like what those quotes actually were. And, it reminded me of like this small, for instance, obviously this pales in comparison to being smeared by the New York Times. But when I was starting out in comedy, and this was when I was still living in Pittsburgh, this guy who wrote for like just one of the local, like it was Pittsburgh Magazine or something, just one of those small little city papers. He wanted to do like a big thing about the comedy scene. And we were all excited about it. It was a big deal. So he was showing up at all these open mics, and he was like around the same age as all of us, like early mid-20s at the time. So he was pretending like he was our friend even. And what we didn't find out until later was like his big goal was to just make us all look like complete losers. Oh yeah, totally, man. And it was and I remember getting a phone call by like fact checkers or whatever, and they would be like, "So what you said was da 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 da," and I'd be like, "That's not actually what I said." Like he's kind of taking that. He's kind of repurposing that to fit whatever narrative he's trying to sell. Like you would say something like, so at an open mic, you try out a new joke, and if it doesn't get laughs, you rewrite it and try to rework it so that it does work. And what he wanted to print was none of these comedians ever get laughs. Like, look at them and they're dumb. You know what I mean? And they were like, so did you say that everybody sucks, basically? And I'm like, no, that's not what I said. And then what do you think got printed anyway? And I remember one of the girls who was like coming up with us, she was so bummed out about the whole thing that she quit comedy. And to this day, I really do not, like, I have a grudge against this guy to this day. I'm like, dude, you wanted to make some dishonest article, like poo-pooing on a local comedy scene for no reason other than to try to enhance yourself. And she got robbed of so much because of you. And that's just so horrible. And so anyway, that's just a small for instance of like how reporters at times will just kind of misconstrue things to fit their narrative. So
they come at you with the narrative that they want to portray, and meanwhile, these other people, the mainstream comedians or whatever, they get these fawning pieces written about them in all these articles. They can say all kinds of shit, and they're going to get these wonderful articles about how great they're doing and how funny their stuff is and everything. But I knew going in that chances are the New York Times, which, their job is to manufacture consent for war, or consent for, unfettered capitalism. Right now it's manufacturing consent for this bailout, which is the largest theft maybe America has ever seen by the time it's all done. And that's their job. So I knew they weren't coming at me in a positive light, but I've never tried to deny them from seeing my stuff. So I gave the guy a free ticket to my stand-up show in New York. And, then I ended up titling the article, How to Do Propaganda for the New York Times, based on an attack piece against me, because I could see every detail of how you create this type of propaganda. And, some of it is hilarious. I mean, it was so ridiculous that they ultimately issued multiple retractions on that article, which for the New York Times is no small thing. They don't like putting retractions. Hey, we got this wrong at the beginning of their, at the end of their articles. Of course, they leave the piece up because they're fine with a bunch of other horse shit in there. But they did issue multiple retractions. But it was everything from like pretending that he said he heard burly Russian men laughing about my show outside of the live show in New York, when in fact the reason he heard burly Russian men outside my show in New York is because, completely unconnected to my show, they're at the Cutting Room in New York. There was a Russian rapper performing after my show had ended, having his own show, and there were lines of Russian Americans waiting to get into his show because they liked his Russian rapping. And so this journalist, so-called, at the New York Times, either decided not to figure out why those people are speaking Russian outside of my show, or, which is the worst journalist ever, why not ask them? They speak English, I'm sure. There. Hey, why do you like Lee Camp? And they go, who? We're here to see Noise the rapper. And then, or he knew that they were not there for me and decided to just flat out lie in the article. I mean, but it's just tons of stuff like that. That is one tiny example. And, these hit pieces were done against me in the New York Times and NPR's Weekend Edition within the span of a few months. It just seemed that they were designed to, delegitimize what I do and make sure that any Google search, the first thing that comes up, because Google heavily weights towards legacy media, as they call it. So the first things that are going to come up are the tack pieces in New York Times, NPR, and then also Wikipedia can only quote. You're only supposed to source from sources like New York Times or CNN. You're not allowed to source from things like my own show or my own Facebook or my own articles written for TruthDig. You can't source from those things. So therefore, all the sources about me are from an attack piece in the New York Times. So it really is like this cyclical thing designed to really downgrade and attack someone.
So what was it like for you when you first saw that article? Like, I mean, so you knew it was coming. They had contacted you. You knew they were going to write something. What was it like for you when you first saw it?
Yeah, I knew he was going to write something. I didn't know how much trouble he'd go to like manufacture a fake world about me. Talking to he talked to someone who quit RT America 2 months before my show started airing, and she claimed she was there at the beginning of my show as it was airing, and that it was all useful idiot stuff. And anyway, she just completely falsehoods, and so I didn't know the level he was going to go to. When I first saw it, and I also didn't know it was going to be on the cover of the arts section, like they actually put it in the front of the section and made a big deal out of it. When I first saw it, it was upsetting and it pissed me off. But ultimately, it was a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to really internally see and point out this propaganda. And that's why I hope people will check out the book and see it for themselves, because I think it woke a lot of people up, to actually see no, this is my life, and he's made up stuff about my life. Another thing said in the article, which you can appreciate as a comedian, is he talked to a club owner in New York, and he claimed the club owner said, we would never book Lee Camp on a weekend. Basically, we would never put Lee Camp up in front of larger crowds. We'd only put him up on the off nights. But that's not what the owner said, because I talked to the owner. The owner said that we are a showcase club, so we don't have headliners on the weekends. Lee Camp is a headliner, so therefore he wasn't really playing here on weekends. It really was completely different than how he portrayed it.
Yeah, he's basically saying on the weekends, we don't rely on a name to draw, which Lee Camp is a name, but we're a club in New York, so we get tourists and stuff like that. So we just do showcases on the weekends. And the writer heard what he wanted to hear.
Right. And that owner also claimed that he said, well, he's political. And so what Dennis Miller and Janine Garofalo and Mark Maron were to their generation, Lee Camp is to our generation, is one of the things he said. Incredibly flattering. Of course, that was not in the New York Times.
Yeah. No, that was what made me think of the open mic article guy. Actually, that was what reminded me of that. Where it's like, oh yeah, they hear what they want to hear when they want to make somebody look bad. So, did you talk about that on the show too? Because I know a lot of the content here is based off of monologues that you've also done on the show. Correct?
Yeah, I don't think I ever covered the New York Times thing on the show. There's probably about a third of the book was never done on Redacted Tonight, but a lot of it does. I kind of have a process now where I create a monologue for Redacted Tonight, then I create something based on the same topic, sometimes for formerly TruthDig. Now that has collapsed due to a horrible publisher. So I'll write that for an online publication often. And then this is the first book based on that stuff. So.
Can you actually do you know anything about what happened with TruthDig exactly? Because all I know is that it's just no more, but is there anything you're able to share?
Yeah, I wasn't, I kind of was tangentially involved. I kind of was told about it at the day before it happened. Basically, the publisher did not like that that TruthDig was not MSNBC. Basically, she wanted to be the kind of faux resistance kind of neoliberal MSNBC anti-Trump page, and instead, thanks to Bob Scheer, the legendary journalist who was editor-in-chief, Truthdig became well known for being, anti-Russiagate, standing up against neoliberalism, standing up, against this pretense that everything was right in the world under Obama, and that he was this wonderful president, and there were no wars, and all was peaceful, and we were all skipping and high-fiving. And so they became known for that, thanks largely to Chris Hedges, the most popular column at the site, and Bob Scheer, the editor-in-chief. And apparently she wanted to get rid of Bob Scheer, the editor-in-chief, Chris Hedges, the most popular columnist, and then me. Those were the three big ones she was trying to purge. And also, this part I had no idea about because I'm not working at Truthdig. I only contribute from afar. Apparently, she had terrible labor practices. She had workers sign things saying they were not accountable to California labor law, and I didn't know any of that. So anyway, she was pushing Bob Scheer out, and Chris Hedges and the others, several of the top staff at Truthdig, decided, listen, we're going to go on a work stoppage until she brings back Bob Scheer and at least talks to us about our other demands. And at the day before, Chris asked me if I wanted to sign on to it. So I said, sure. I'll stand with the workers. And so then she, much to their surprise, refused to ever even meet with them, which apparently is,
wow.
I hear that's labor law, is that the employer or publisher is supposed to at least meet and discuss demands, even if nothing comes of it. And she never met with them and ultimately just dissolved the site. So as far as I know, that's as much as I know. But a lot of brave workers. I don't want to take any credit for it because I was just told about it the day before. But
sure. Well, have there been any talks? I mean, is everybody potentially going to migrate somewhere else? I mean, it was a huge service, and do you know if there's any talks of moving elsewhere or a new site forming, perhaps?
There is talks of moving elsewhere. I don't know what I'm allowed to reveal about that, so I won't say anything more. Right. But there is talks about moving elsewhere. I have published one column for a Consortium News. So if people are looking for my stuff, they can go there. Also, a site that I'm a huge fan of and have written for before is Popular Resistance. So I know that if people are looking for what the area that Truthdig used to serve, I think Popular Resistance is a great one to go to.
So what made you decide that the book was going to be, the next big project? I mean, you did the special the year before. What made you go book this time? I really do appreciate that longer form. I mean, I think I'm a stand-up comic at heart, but I'm also, as you well know, there's kind of, stand-up comics can kind of be broken down into two groups. There's the type that are heavy on the writing and really put a lot of value in that side of things, and the type that are just kind of these a bit natural-born performers that would be perfectly happy doing crowd work, and some of them are incredibly talented crowd work, improv artists and things like that, incredibly talented performers, but they're not really concerned with the writing, or that's just not their thing. I suppose the best ever on that regard is probably like a Robin Williams. Uh-oh. Oh, snap. See if he comes back here, folks. Here. Oh, we lost you for a minute. Yeah, you're back. Right. You're back. All right. You said we lost you at Robin Williams.
Yeah,
best example.
And so then there's the writing side of things, which I've always been very big on the writing. All my stand-up is, heavily written. That doesn't mean I won't ad-lib things, but I put a lot of value in the writing. And writing these columns has been very important to me. And I think the longer form stuff really educates in a way that stand-up comedy can't. And stand-up comedy can educate in a way that the writing can't. So I love both of them. I put a high value on both of them, and but the book is broken up into bite-sized chunks. I don't consider myself an academic of the brand that could write a 500-page book on one topic. So it is broken up into bite-sized pieces that I think people can easily read on the shitter and really enjoy. But it is all referenced, so you can see where the facts are coming from. You can see, that the $21 trillion unaccounted for at the Pentagon is actually not something I made up. And even Forbes has covered it once or twice. So they are all referenced, which I think is unique in a comedy book. There's not a lot of referencing like that. Also, I'm excited about the foreword by Chris Hedges and the intro by Jimmy Dore.
Yes.
So I'm very excited about those. Although the comedy special you mentioned is now free for the first time. So people can watch that for free at LeeCampAmerican.com.
LeeCampAmerican.com. So where can people go to get this book?
That's at LeeCampBook.com. It's also
easy.
I do make it easy. I create URLs for these, but it is all at LeeCamp.com. It's just it might take them a minute to find the comedy special. So I made the comedy special at LeeCampAmerican.com, LeeCampBook.com. So.
Perfect, man. That's awesome. And you know, and I will say this, and this is just kind of a small footnote. You worked with one of my favorite book publishers in the world, I guess, PM Press. I love those folks. They're out of San Francisco. They table at a lot of our shows, and they were actually
really?
well, they were actually at our San Francisco show, and the gentleman who was there, I'm forgetting his first name off the top of my head.
Ramsey.
Was it? I don't think it was.
Oh, really?
Man, yeah, I don't think it was Ramsey. I feel bad now because we both had ties to Bloomington, Indiana, so we gushed about that for a while. But Stephanie used to do it, but she's since relocated. She's not based in San Francisco anymore. But he was like, "Oh, do you have Lee's new book?" And I'd had the galley of it, and I was trying to read it that way. But then he was like, you need the print. It's a lot," which it is, because you do a really good job with the footnotes, like you said. Like the footnotes are all there, so it was easier when I was able to, do this. I guess I'm still a bit old fashioned in that way. So I was happy to get a print copy of it, which I got in San Francisco when PM was at our show. But all right.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of PM Press, they told me Amazon, in light of the virus, is not shipping any like independent booksellers. I mean, I don't prefer people go through Amazon anyway. So if you want to, so they are suffering. PM Press is suffering right now, and if you want to go through PM Press directly, which puts the most money in their pocket, that will also be at LeeCampBook.com. I don't link to the Amazon or anything. So
awesome. So LeeCampBook.com, LeeCampAmerican.com for the special, and LeeCamp.com for all things Lee Camp. And, is there anything else you want to point out about the book that I didn't mention? I didn't want to just go from every single topic because I want people to read it. But is there anything in particular I didn't?
The one I've been talking about a lot, the chapter I've been talking about a lot because I had no idea how important it was going to become, is there's a chapter in there about how 2 years ago it leaked that Goldman Sachs analysts were telling investors not to invest. These are the biggest.
Ah, damn it. Come on, Internet. What are you doing? See, if we all had if we all had that city owned, here, I'll go do that. I took myself off the stream. Here, let me do this. We'll see if it comes back in a more flattering light. I feel bad that still is not the most. We might have lost Lee, you guys. Yeah, it looks like we might have lost Lee. He's not. Yeah, it's not looking good. All right.
In the world,
You're back. Wait. We lost him. Okay. All right, guys, we lost Lee. All right, well, I think we got the plugs in there at least. But let me see if we can try to get him back. Lost the connection there, folks. It was right in a crucial moment. He was going to give us the part of the book that was his favorite part of the book. We were about to dive into it. We'll see if he can hop back on here. And if he can't, we'll just dismount for the day. No biggie. It happens. This is how you do it live. Let me see what you guys are saying. Sorry we lost Lee in such a weird, anticlimactic, not send-off way. But I'll text him later. Let's see here. Sparky, what's up, buddy? Ron, love you and Lee's innovative, no BS, no sellout approach to news and commentary. Never thought I'd see the tech for such a format in my lifetime. Thank you for that, Sparky. I appreciate that very much. I will pass that on to Lee. Roger Birdbear, what's up? Thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. Edwin, what's up, buddy? Thank you for the song recommendation. Request, can you tweet out a Nirvana playlist of 10 songs? Ooh, my favorite 10 Nirvana songs. Lee, you're back. Here we go. Lee, are you there?
Sorry about that.
We don't. There you are. There you are. All right, cool. You're back. Welcome back. Well, do you want to finish that thought before we sign off here?
Yeah, absolutely. But I want you to finish the Nirvana list after that, though.
I will. Yeah, no. They requested it via tweet, so I guess I'll tweet it out.
Yeah. I was saying that there's a chapter in the book about how Goldman Sachs, it had leaked out that Goldman Sachs analysts were telling their investors, the biggest investors in the world, not to invest in curing diseases because that would mean there was no continual revenue stream if you cure the disease. Literally, they were telling them to only invest in treatments for diseases rather than cures. It also said that curing diseases causes further hurt to their profit margins because then the person with the disease doesn't pass it on to others. I mean, literally, this is like capitalism setting the basis, the putting down the foundation to create a global pandemic. I mean, it truly is incredible. And I don't know whether you ultimately one day will see a direct connection between that and coronavirus, but still it goes to show capitalism is not meant for creating a healthful world. It is meant for profit and revenue streams, and it truly is repulsive. But I had no idea how important that chapter was going to become.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, man, I think the connection is already there because, I mean, I've had some conversations with friends of mine who, let's just say are still pretty left-leaning, but maybe not as left-leaning as myself. And they're saying now that they're just like, look, this is showing why we can't have the healthcare system we have and why it's so brutal and barbaric and inefficient. And it's as simple as when you really just break it down to its most basic component, when you're set up for profit above all else, not only is that morally disgusting when you're dealing with people's lives, but also whenever something happens like a pandemic, you're completely unequipped to deal with it because being ready for a pandemic isn't good for your bottom line. And that's the only thing you're looking out for. So it's inefficient beyond comprehension. And that's why our response is similar to third world countries.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, it on every level, this has just shown immense incompetence, but it's not incompetence by accident. It's not like, oops, Trump is dumb.
Right.
This is a system that has vomited up the largest, sociopath it could find because the system is set up like that. It is meant to do that. Once we have gutted the entire working class so that 50% of the country wasn't prepared for a $1,000 emergency. I mean, this system was set up to create a crisis like this. And now, rather than helping people, rather than truly getting people the help they need, those ruling elite are trying to figure out how they can best exploit a crisis. And so that's why, this is a make or break moment, not just for climate change and environmentalism, but also for our systems as a whole, because this is the workers realizing that we're the ones that run the show and we're the ones that are getting, left out there to die as we try and deal with this.
Yeah. So LeeCampBook.com, LeeCampAmerican.com, LeeCamp.com. Is there anything else you want to plug as we send off here?
No, that's it. The TV show is called Redacted Tonight. If people haven't heard of it, I hope they check that out as well. Unlike most of the comedy shows, the entire thing is on YouTube as well. So.
All right, man. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for bearing through the internet thing. Man, you're right in D.C., and they haven't figured out solid internet in D.C. What's going on?
Oh, my God. There's another problem. Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by, man. Good talking to you. Stay safe, man.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your